Coré, fils de Yishar, fils de Kehat, fils de Lévi, forma un parti avec Dathan et Abiram, fils d'Eliab, et On, fils de Pélet, descendant de Ruben. Ils s'avancèrent devant Moïse avec 250 des enfants d'Israël, princes de la communauté, membres des réunions, personnages notables. Et, s'étant attroupés autour de Moïse et d'Aaron, ils leur dirent « C'en est trop de votre part, toute la communauté, oui, tous sont des saints, et au milieu d'eux est le Seigneur. Pourquoi donc érigez-vous en chef de l'assemblée du Seigneur ?» Moïse, en les entendant, se jeta sur sa face. Puis il parla à Coré et à toute sa faction en ces termes. « Demain, le Seigneur fera savoir qu'il est digne de lui, qui est le saint qu'il admet auprès de lui, celui qu'il aura élu, il le laissera approcher de lui. Faites ceci, munissez-vous d'encensoirs, toi, Coré, et tout ton parti. Mettez-y du feu et remplissez-les de parfums devant le Seigneur. Demain, or, l'homme qui distinguera le Seigneur, c'est celui-là qui est le saint. Assez donc, enfants de Lévi. Et Moïse dit à Coré, or, écoutez, enfants de Lévi. C'est donc peu pour vous que le Dieu d'Israël vous ait distingué de la communauté d'Israël en vous admettant auprès de lui pour faire le service du tabernacle divin et en vous plaçant en présence de la communauté pour le servir. Il t'a donc approché de lui, toi et tous tes frères, les enfants de Lévi, et vous réclamez encore le sacerdoce. En vérité, toi et toute ta bande, c'est contre l'Éternel que vous êtes ligués, car Aaron, qu'est-il pour que vous murmuriez contre lui? Moïse envoya quérir Dathan et Abiram, fils d'Eliab, mais ils dirent, nous n'irons point. Est-ce peu que tu aies fait sortir d'un pays ruisselant de lait et de miel pour nous faire mourir dans ce désert sans prétendre encore t'ériger en maître sur nous? Certes, ce n'est pas dans un pays abondant en lait et en miel que tu nous as conduits. Ce ne sont ni champs ni vignes dont tu nous as procuré l'héritage. Crèveras-tu les yeux à ces hommes? Nous n'irons point. Moïse, fort contristé, dit au Seigneur, n'accueille point leur hommage. Je n'ai jamais pris à un seul d'entre eux son âne. Je n'ai jamais fait de mal à un seul d'entre eux. Moïse dit à Coré, toi et tout ton parti, soyez devant le Seigneur, toi et eux ainsi qu'Aaron demain. Prenez chacun votre encensoir, mettez-y du parfum et apportez devant le Seigneur chacun votre encensoir, 250 encensoirs, toi aussi et Aaron, chacun le sien. Ils prirent chacun leur encensoir, y mirent le feu, le couvrirent de parfum et se placèrent à l'entrée de la tente d'assignation avec Moïse et Aaron. Coré avait ameuté contre eux toute la communauté à l'entrée de la tente d'assignation. Et la gloire de l'Éternel apparut à toute la communauté. Et l'Éternel parla à Moïse et à Aaron en ces termes. Séparez-vous de cette communauté, je veux l'anéantir à l'instant. Mais ils tombèrent sur leurs faces et dirent, Seigneur, Dieu des esprits de toute chair, quoi, un seul homme aura péché et tu t'irriterais contre la communauté tout entière.
Ce soir, je vais parler en anglais, mais j'ai préparé les sources pour ceux qui sont moins à l'aise en anglais. Alors, je ne sais pas si... Shabbat Shalom. And Mazel Tov to Anastasia and her family on the occasion of her bat mitzvah. And wow, what beautiful singing, what wonderful reading. And we look forward to tomorrow as well. And also, Chodesh Tov, because this Shabbat sees the new moon, the new month of Tammuz. Now, who is ready for the big match tomorrow night? Who likes football? 2 matches, tonight. Well, tomorrow it's Switzerland against England. Tomorrow it's Switzerland against England. Who is supporting Switzerland? And who is supporting England? Oh, okay. 1 or 2. me, I've always been a supporter of Wales because my mother's family is Welsh. Growing up in England and being against the English, it's okay if Switzerland, for me it's okay if Switzerland win tomorrow night, it doesn't matter. Is anybody here supporting Germany or Spain? But the real supporters are probably watching the match because it's happening right now, right? So they're probably not here. Anyone for France? 1, 2? Let the best team win, absolutely. You've stolen the last line of my sermon, but okay. Thanks, Jenny, that's great. Anyway, it's an exciting Shabbat. It's also a big year for elections and a big week. We all wait to see what happens on Sunday in the French elections. And this morning we woke up to the results of the British elections. And there was a very clear change of leadership and a new prime minister. In the parasha, Korach, we also have a big match this week. And the sides are also clear. Korach challenges Moses' authority as leader of the Israelites in the desert. Anastasia will be discussing this tomorrow in more detail, so I won't say too much now. But there ends up being a contest, not a penalty shootout, but fire pans at dawn, which ends decisively in Moses' favor. Thanks to divine intervention, this demagogue Korach and his team, 250 of his followers, are swallowed up by the earth, whilst Moses carries on to the semifinals, goes on through the wilderness. In Pirkei Avot, chapter 5, 17, we are told that every argument that is for the sake of heaven, l'shem shamayim, will in the end endure. But one that is not for the sake of heaven will not endure. What kind of argument is for the sake of heaven? The arguments between Hillel and Shammai. And which kind of arguments are not for the sake of heaven? Pirkei Avot tells us the argument like with Korach. Some things are honest arguments. We can discuss about them l'shem shamayim. For example, politically, should central government be bigger or smaller, more interventionist or more laissez-faire? We can have different points of view. Some of us are more to the left of the center, some of us more to the right of the center, and we can argue all day about the advantages and disadvantages, the pros and the cons. Well, for British Jews today, the biggest argument, the biggest question on British Jewish social media, which I promise you is a thing, has been, will there be a mezuzah on the door of 10 Downing Street tonight? The new Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, and his Jewish wife, Victoria, are members of the Liberal Jewish Synagogue in London. Earlier this week, Starmer mentioned in an interview that he and his wife like to have dinner with their children on Friday nights, and he stops work at 6 o'clock every Friday night. This reminded me of my own mother, Zichrona Livracha, who insisted that my sister and I were home by 6:30 on Friday night every week in order to light the candles and eat dinner. Woe betide us if we were late. It would be a big problem. It was simply unthinkable not to be home 6:30 on a Friday. And as we got older, we could go out after dinner with our friends, but the rule was clear. First, we had to be home by 6:30 for Shabbat. And this week, Starmer's opponents leapt upon his statement that somehow he was a part-time politician, working only during the day. What if Russia invaded the United Kingdom at 2 minutes past 6 on a Friday night? Would he not be back at work until Monday? That's what they said. The attacks were quite desperate, I would argue disingenuous, and not l'shem shamayim, not for the sake of heaven. And I hope that this family, the first Jewish family to live in number 10 Downing Street, I hope they're settling down for their first Shabbat dinner in their new home tonight. Tonight begins Rosh Chodesh Tammuz, the new month of Tammuz. And this discussion of arguments makes me think of a famous story in Mishnah Rosh Hashanah 289. It's there on the text. Rabban Gamliel, the head of the rabbis, he was in charge of deciding when the new month should begin. Jewish months begin with a new moon, and this required witnesses to come to Jerusalem and tell the rabbis that they had seen the moon. Rabban Gamliel had a diagram of different forms of the moon, and he would question the witnesses who came. Did it look like this? Did it look like this? Is it more like this? And once it happened that witnesses came and said that they'd seen the new moon the day before, but the next day it was not yet there, Rabban Gamliel accepted their testimony and declared the new month begun. But another rabbi, Rabbi Dosa ben Horkinas, disagreed. He said they're clearly false witnesses. How, he said, how can witnesses say that a woman gave birth one day and that the next day she was still pregnant? How is it possible? And a third rabbi, Rabbi Yoshua, agreed with him. This became a great challenge to Rabban Gamliel's authority. And ultimately, Rabbi Yoshua is told that while he may be right, if he starts questioning the decisions of the court, ultimately every Bet Din since Moses, would end up being questioned, and the whole system would then fall down. First, this makes Rabbi Yoshua very angry, but finally they find a way and he's reconciled with Rabban Gamliel. At the end of the story, Rabban Gamliel stood up and kissed him on his head. He said, "Come in peace, my teacher and my student." He said, "You're my teacher in wisdom," because Rabbi Yoshua, his student, was wiser than anyone else in his generation. But he said, "You're also my student because you accepted my statement, you accepted my authority, despite your disagreement with it." He could be both teacher and student with Rabban Gamliel. And there are perhaps similarities between this story with the rabbis and the new moon and with our story, our parasha, Korach. Sometimes we lose an argument simply by opening our mouth and arguing. However right or wrong our arguments, sometimes it's simply not the right time to argue, not the right place, and we simply have to accept authority, hard though it may be. As in football, we have to play to the referee's whistle. And in the desert, there was no VAR, well, maybe there was God, to challenge and to check the referee's decision. Shabbat Shalom, Chodesh Tov. As Jenny said, may the best teams win tonight and tomorrow. And may we all delight in the fact that our battles in Europe this summer are carried out today on the football pitch. And whatever the election results that come, may all of our countries work harmoniously together for the benefit of the future of the democratic world. Shabbat Shalom, Chodesh Tov.